Hello there. Hey, so this is the first time we're doing a live with actually one of the big Bitcoin Bitcoin security teams in the space, and I hope that everything is works fine right now at YouTube, at Twitter. Maybe like we could see comments from people.
Yes, I just got a notification that we're live. I think we're good.
Oh, cool.
It's
So
looking
we
good.
have Rusbe and Sina and myself, I'm here, and we want to talk about self custody and Bitcoin. And so I'm gonna give a very short introduction about Kevin, very very short, and let him continue with introducing themselves. So Kevin is the CEO of Wizardsardine. It's a Bitcoin security company, and they did a bunch of cool projects and also some research, and I think some stuff with like breaking some Bitcoin tools and hacking some stuff, actually for the good, not for the bad side. And yeah, I've been actually following with your work in the last couple of years, and we would love to hear more about that.
Cool. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, so where can I start? I'm gonna start about my own story, maybe, which is a bit longer than the one from Wizardsardine. So I've been working on Bitcoin for a very long time now, and all of my kind of career in Bitcoin has been with a very strong interest in security, just because I am extremely risk averse as a person, which is not necessarily the best profile for the Bitcoin space, because I would have been much better off just buying Bitcoin and doing nothing. But no, I had to dig into the rabbit hole further and further and trying to understand every single thing. And of course, doing that, I realized a lot of things were kind of like not good yet in Bitcoin. And so, I started a very long time ago, and even still today, there is so much work to do in Bitcoin. When people are talking about all of these, oh, Bitcoin is perfect, Bitcoin can never have any issue, blah blah blah. No, there is a lot of work to do, and a lot of people are working on it. And yeah, and that was one of my super big interests. And so one of the first kind of like big things I did in security for Bitcoin was actually organizing the first Bitcoin security conference called Breaking Bitcoin. And so I organized that. It was in 2017 in Paris, the first edition. And then we had another edition in Amsterdam 2 years later. So basically, this conference was really, well, when you call a conference Breaking Bitcoin, people were like, oh, what are you doing? Are you an anti-Bitcoin person? Blah, blah, blah. And obviously, this conference was basically packed with all of the hardcore Bitcoiners. Basically, everybody in the audience knew each other, and everybody was working on Bitcoin. It was amazing. Like,
So you
all the
titled it
talks.
in a way to attract the right people and detract the right people. So
Absolutely. And of course, you have some people that don't understand, because they are, let's say, too focused on the Twitter. Oh, everything is perfect in Bitcoin. But the people who actually work on Bitcoin, on the technical side full time, they know all the problems. And we had so many talk applications. And of course, what we had to really make sure all the talks were about like showcasing the problems of Bitcoin. And we had like a huge amount of talk proposals. So we had to have a review committee for every talk. They had to submit papers for every talks. So we went like the full hardcore kind of academic style. And yeah, like great event. And it was so good to see that, people are not all around like lying about what Bitcoin can and cannot do. It was really about, we are aware of all of this work that needs to be done. And yeah, and all of that was just amazing. This is also at this conference that the No2X movement really took off. So it was during the block size war. And that was the first time that really a very, very large group of people, very big economic actors and developers were basically all agreeing that, no 2x, no to seg with 2x, basically, which was like a fork proposal. So very strong impact on the ecosystem. personally, I was at the time doing consulting, Bitcoin consulting, for large organizations like banks and payment processors and things like that. So basically I was doing protocol development for them or protocol architecture. And at some point, one of my clients came to me and was like, okay, we have an investment fund and we need to delegate control of our funds to some traders, but we don't want them to be able to run out with the money in Bitcoin. And I'm like, that sounds nice, but use a third party or something to enforce your restrictions. Like, it's going to be pretty much either you sign everything, or you so basically either you sign everything or you have to use a third party, something to apply the rules for you. And what they wanted was actually a Bitcoin vault, not a multi-sig in this sense, like an actual technical vault, which is like there is research proposal since 2013 on this. So it's a way for Bitcoin itself to be able to enforce some kind of rules. And for that, typically you needed Covenant, which are like an upgrade of Bitcoin. Sorry, I'm doing a big rant here, but I'm coming to the point. And so basically they were like, yeah, but whatever, we want you to try to find a way to make it with the Bitcoin we have today without a soft fork. And so I was like, yeah, this is pretty much impossible, but hey, if you want to pay me for that, I'm going to do it. And so I did it. And after like maybe a month or two of work on this, I was like, okay, I think I actually have a solution. So I was like kind of mind blown, because that was just so weird. Like, how could everyone have looked into this problem since 2013 and I just get a solution like that? It was like end of 2019, and I was like, what's happening? So first thing I did was starting to talk to some people who were already working in this kind of projects on the Bitcoin side of things. So typically Brian Bishop, who was like spearheading this kind of efforts. And then I actually sent it to the Bitcoin Core mailing list to figure out, hey, can you break it? Then, of course, the first thing to do is to try to build a demo, because what I did was just a prototype on paper. And that's where I hired a guy called Antoine Poinceau, which became my CTO, the CTO and co-founder of Wizardsardine. So he built this prototype, and then we were like, holy shit, it's working. We need to keep pushing this, because like breakthrough innovation. And so that's how we actually co-founded Wizardsardine. So it's a very long story, but that's how we started everything. And
the connection with Antoine came from the conference that you organized, right?
It actually came from the clients that I had. Antoine, funny story about Antoine is that I never met him in person before funding the company. So we were only exchanging like online and stuff. And then we had, the first time we met, we were actually doing a presentation in person of the project, so of Revolt at the time. And that was super funny, because people were like, we were already like completely aligned. We had the whole protocol discussion and everything was built. And it was the first time we met in person, which was like super interesting as well.
You're muted.
You're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, good. Follow-up question. I'm very curious. How long did it take you guys to build actually the end product?
Wow.
Or not the end. I mean, there is no end product to this, right? You guys are keep working on it, but like the first time you release something that you said, okay, this is a version that is ready to be used. It's secure. It's usable. It's implementable for the user.
Yeah.
How long did that take?
Great question. So the very first protocol we were developing was this Revolt protocol. The first usable version took us about 2 years to bring out. And it's not usable in the sense that people should use it. It's usable in the sense that it technically works, but it's a nightmare to use. So Revolt was a very, very heavy protocol and infrastructure. You needed to run a lot of servers in-house. Like running it in production, I don't think anyone does it today. So it's very heavy, but it works. So as a protocol, it was like a breakthrough thing. As an implementation thing, I think it would have taken us forever to actually make it a very usable product. And this is actually why Liana exists. So while building Revolt, we started engaging with very, very large Bitcoin institutions like exchanges and things like that. which very large holdings, and they were basically explaining us how they do things today, which is catastrophically bad compared to what we can do. And then they were like, yeah, but we can't just jump through something like Revolt because we use other coins, we use blah, 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 blah. And the heavy infrastructure was just something they were not okay with. And we were like, well, we can still do much better than what you have today. And so this is why we started working on Liana instead, or at the same time in parallel, although now Revolt is pretty much on hold until Covenants come out because it's going to make it much easier. But yeah, this is how Liana came out. So Revolt took about 2 years to come up to some kind of usable product. Liana uses the same kind of basis as Revolt. So we already reused some of the core libraries. The first iteration of the wallet in terms of user interface and things like that, we reused some of it. So the very first beta version of Liana took us something like 6 months to build. The 0.1, right? So that's already a long time ago. And 0.1, if you find it today and you run it, it really doesn't look anything like the Liana you have today. So 6 months to build, let's say, a working proof of concept. Then it took us another good 6 months before v1.0. And as you know, now it's 8 versions later. So it's been a long time, and there is still very big things coming every time. So yeah.
Cool.
Wow.
So actually, you just mentioned that there's a new version out now. It's like the V8. I like how it looks like an American muscle car name, so it's V8. So yeah, so the V8 you call it. I've seen you actually call it. What did you call it? You called it the mainstream release, right? So
Yep.
why is that? I know why is that, but let's talk
Yeah.
about it. So.
For the audience.
So basically, it's basically we've been 4 years on this, right? Wizardsardine, we've been building nonstop for 4 years to come up to this kind of product. Liana worked really well from V1, but then we always wanted more things because people always want more. One of the things we really wanted was Taproot, because for Taproot, as we can discuss later on, with Taproot, we get a lot of fee savings on chain. We gain a lot of privacy, things like that. And so while it was working, I was like, well, I'm not going to move my own stack before I have more privacy, because right now I had like very good privacy that I built over these years, and moving everything to Liana before Taproot, I was like, I would just, it's not great for me. Let's just wait until we build Taproot. Then we had Taproot, great. And then people are like, yeah, but how do you use this thing? So when you were launching Liana before V8, if you didn't watch, let's say, a tutorial or something about it before, you would be just overwhelmed and close it. And we call it the mainstream version because the mainstream doesn't typically go look for tutorials or things like that before launching a software. They go to the website, they click download, they launch it, and then they see the thing and they close it because they were like, oh my God. So now we are starting to have these templates. So when you open the software, it basically gives you, currently we just have 2, but it gives you like the simple inheritance template and then an expanding multi-sig template. So let's say if you just want the very basic inheritance, the one that you would do by yourself without help or anything, you can click on this template and it will ask you for the first key, so the one you will use every day, and then the key that you will give to your family. But it doesn't let you customize all the things as it would before. Of course, you can if you want to go in the customized kind of templates. But this is just to get started. So for somebody who opens the user interface the first time, they would at least have an idea of what the software look like and what you can do with it. Then, of course, this software is still very much, or at least everyone's situation is very much different. So inheritance doesn't necessarily mean just one key. You could have, multiple people you want to have keys. You could have different levels of inheritance, maybe your wife first and then your kids, not at the same time. So all of these, of course, is just like, we cannot come up with templates for that. There is still like a lot of learning involved in that, but at least now people can know what the basics look like.
Cool. I love how flexible actually it is to use this. Like it's I don't know, maybe like at was one point in time where Andrew Polstra and Peter Waller were talking to each other, and I said that let's build Miniscript this way, so it would be very flexible with like all these kinds of like situations that we could imagine building. So was this like something already in? I know that it was already possible with Bitcoin script, but was it like Miniscript was like had something in mind before that they come up like with the idea or built the idea of Miniscript to have all these flexible scenarios be considered if you want to do a setup?
Yeah, Miniscript is a very interesting discussion. So Miniscript is not a change in Bitcoin. It's a tool that's built on top of it. So like having Miniscript didn't require any change in like the consensus or anything like that. It's not like all the discussion about soft forks and things like that. Absolutely not. Miniscript is just kind of an abstraction of the script language of Bitcoin. So why did Miniscript exist? So the very first actually paper I did on Revolt, the Vault protocol I came up with at the beginning of Wizardsardine, I actually had to do the script by hand. So Miniscript wasn't really a thing then. It just came out about the same time. And so I can tell you that building a Vault architecture by hand, writing the opcodes one after the other, is extremely difficult. And on top of that, you cannot, like, basically, even the best core devs wouldn't be able to imagine all of the ways to execute this script. And so all of the attacks against like kind of Bitcoin script are about out of the box execution of it, basically. So I don't have any specific example to give here, but there is quite a few that are documented online. But the idea is, for example, if like having a script that does what you want it to do by hand is doable. The problem is that you will not be able to know that this is the only way to spend your script. And this is a massive issue, because if you do a multi-sig and it works with the multi-sig, but it also works with just a single sig and you didn't know that, that is a major security risk. And so Miniscript is actually doing this work for you. So Miniscript is going to enforce that the only way to spend is the way you basically wrote down in the policy compiler. And so Miniscript is actually a security tool to make sure that, yeah, there is no other way to execute this script. And so back to your question, why weren't like anything like Liana before out there? It's because making script is just so hard that nobody wanted to take the risk of this kind of stuff. And so the only way you would have, you could do some advanced things were to actually hard code it. So you would not let your user change any parameter there, because otherwise the logic of the script could potentially break. And so I'm going to give you two examples of advanced scripting before Miniscript. One of them is Green. So Green address from Blockstream. Like it was called Green address first and bought by Blockstream, and now Blockstream Green. So Green is actually using a time lock in it, but in a very, very fixed way that you cannot change yourself, and you don't even know it when you are using it. So what they are doing is just that they have a second factor authentication. So it's a 2 of 2, you and the second factor server. And if the server is offline after a few weeks or a few months, you can spend by yourself. You don't really know that as a user, but it's just a security feature they put there by themselves. But you cannot modify the number of keys, the number of 2FA. It's very, very hard-coded, and there is no way to modify that. Another one is Lightning. So Lightning Network also uses time locks. So the way Lightning does it is that you basically have a 2 of 2 with the other participant in the channel. But if one of the participants is irresponsive, you need to be able to withdraw your funds. And so again, you have like kind of a time lock here, but it's not something you see as a user. It's just like the protocol is designed like that. The very big difference with Miniscript is that now Miniscript allow you to have wallets like Liana, where you can change all of these conditions, you can change the time locks, you can have more than one, like crazy customability, right?
Yeah, so you have this tension in the Bitcoin space where there are, like you said, there might be many things that are possible to do or we want to do, but the script is either too complex or people haven't figured it out yet. It's sometimes impossible because we still need some upgrades. And then we can't have a lot of business applications because of those limitations. And then there's this other camp that says, okay, so let's go around these limitations, quickly upgrade, add this and that. And for example, all the discussion around CTV and covenants and so on. But what really excites me about Miniscript and the innovation that you guys are using is that it's kind of finding the best of both worlds, finding the way to extract maximum usage out of the existing system without really needing to wait for that massive consensus to build around an upgrade or so. So essentially, this makes us use the capabilities that Bitcoin has always had, but has been so complex and difficult that it was just business-wise impossible, like theoretically possible, but very difficult to implement. And that to me is amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's a very important tool. Miniscript is a very important tool. Then just to get some controversy going here, there is always, I guess it's just a human behavior thing, but we always want the next thing as human beings. And in Bitcoin, it's starting to take way too big of a place, especially in the Twitter space. When you look at what people are talking about on Twitter. And most of these people are not technical, or at least they are not, working on the Bitcoin protocol itself. So everyone wants upgrade to the protocol because it will enable X, Y, Z. Sure. But look at the previous upgrades, SegWit. Who is really using SegWit? Sure. I'm not talking about having a SegWit address and using a SegWit wallet. I'm talking about using the capabilities that SegWit enabled. You had multi-sig before SegWit. You had single sig before SegWit. So that's not the big change, right? The big change was basically enabling Lightning. So that's cool. But we didn't see many other things like Lightning coming out of that. So SegWit, huge change, massive change in Bitcoin. People really wanted it. And then, well, nothing really happened. Next one, Taproot. People were like, wow, we're going to do crazy stuff with Taproot. Taproot came out. Who is using it? Well, some exchanges still don't even let you withdraw funds to a Taproot address. Like, insane. So people want always the next thing because they're like, oh, then we can do this, we can do that. But it's never enough. And and so now it's covenants. And then when covenants are out, it's not something that's going to work out of the box. You will still need people to build wallets around them. You will need to build tools like Miniscript on top of it so you can actually use them. It's going to take years. And then people will be like, oh, but then we need the next thing, And so at some point, tools like Miniscript that lets people use the existing Bitcoin. For me, like that's the dream. Wizardsardine, we've always built stuff with the existing Bitcoin network. So we have never been pushing for changes in Bitcoin Core, even though technically speaking, we would be probably the only actually company right now that would benefit right away from covenants. They would work really well with Liana. They would work really well with Revolt, but we're not pushing from them. We never took a public stance about a specific covenant or something like that because we're like, this is just, always pushing the goalpost, and we can already do amazing things on Bitcoin.
It's fascinating how you guys. Yeah, you go.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention something we should have probably mentioned a little bit earlier. So Liana wallet is basically the entire infrastructure we use at 21st Capital for the Smart Vault. So the audience knows that. And the reason Sina, me, and Zia are so excited about this is because we just love the technology and what it enables to the user, right? And I think at this stage, Kevin, and I would end this with a question, is that a lot of users are still confused what it actually solves, and there's a lot of question around that. What makes this tool different than conventional other traditional open source software that is available out there, like for example Sparrow Wallet or Spectre, or even some closed source ones like Ledger Live, right? That is very famous and everybody uses. Can you maybe lay down the benefits, like the sizzle of the steak, if you will? what users benefit from if they use the Smart Vault or Liana wallet in this case.
Cool. Yeah, I should have introed Liana, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, basically the difference. Where do I even start? I'm gonna start with just saying that it's open source, so everything in the code is open and can be checked, and also it's very open for anyone else to reuse the code, to improve it, to look into it, to build something on top of it. So this is not something proprietary in that sense. It's really something that we built and we put out there. Now we launched Liana nearly 2 years ago, at least the first, the V0.1. So the very first public thing was like about 2 years ago already. And no other wallet right now in Bitcoin is capable of doing what we're doing. There was MyCitadel that was looking into using Miniscript. It wouldn't be compatible one-on-one with Liana because they were doing things differently. But they're actually taking a step back and going back to only focusing on what they were doing before, because there is so much work to do around like building a wallet for Miniscript. So this is something, I wanted to just point out that this is not some kind of proprietary thing or you have to trust that thing, right? Then
But
what
why
does it
is
enable?
that? Yeah, but why is that? Can you maybe explain a little bit why is it that we are actually the only ones that are using that we have implemented this into the market? Why because I know the skeptics would say, okay, if this was a great tool, why haven't many other great players have adopted it?
Absolutely, yeah. Some people are working on it. Some companies have very, public statements about building on top of Miniscript, but so far we're still the only ones. Why? Because building Bitcoin tools is still very hard. Like building a Bitcoin wallet is very difficult. Not to build a demo, that's pretty easy. You can probably do it in a weekend if you are, a developer. The problem is when you want to give that to the public, you really want to make sure things are working the way they are. And when you want to put your life savings on it, it's probably not your hackathon project either that you're going to put your life savings on. So all of this takes a lot of time. Another thing that is not really related to that, but there is also a lot of work that was necessary on the hardware wallet side. So hardware wallets to be compatible with Liana or the Smart Vault need to be compatible with Miniscript first. This is the thing we were talking about Bitcoin before. So just a kind of an overlay on top of Bitcoin that came out as well about 3 years ago. And so this Miniscript compatibility, there is the chicken and egg problem. Why would the hardware wallet manufacturer want to implement something super useful on the hardware if there is no wallet that's compatible for it? And so it took us years of discussions with them and explanations, and we were basically helping them document it and code it because we really needed this. And they were like, yeah, but you have no users. And then, of course, with Liana, we started getting much more pressure. On our side, people were really starting to push the hardware wallet manufacturers to really implement it. And so that's why, it really went fast. And recently we now have, we have much more. And so that's really cool. But also that was one of the tools that was missing. And so a lot of companies, I think, were just kind of like, oh, this looks like an unachievable goal. But everything is doable. You just need to work hard enough to get it. So I really think that was important. I was also saying Bitcoin Core is not really... So Miniscript is not a change in terms of how Bitcoin works. But something we really, really wanted from a security perspective is that Bitcoin Core is compatible with the Liana or the Smart Vault backups. To us, this is very important because Bitcoin Core is still the reference. It's basically the Bitcoin protocol. And to us, it would not make sense to be able to, let's say, have a backup of our wallet. And then if the wallet doesn't exist in the future or something like that, you cannot import it to Bitcoin Core. That would be terrible. And so making Miniscript into Bitcoin Core, that's something we did ourselves as well. So that took a while. First the Miniscript for SegWit, then the Miniscript for Taproot. So again, that's a lot of work, and there is not that many Bitcoin Core developers out there. And so again, we had kind of the the first mover advantage in a way, but not in a way that others could have done it. So it's really like, again, the team was just the perfect team for this kind of work. So
being at the right place at the right time with the right people. Pretty much.
Exactly. Having a team like we have, yeah, I'm very, very proud of it. And yeah, I mean, that's also, reputation in the Bitcoin space. There are not many companies that call themselves Bitcoin security companies like we do. Actually, I don't know any others that really call it that way. So once again, it's really about the team. Now that the product is out, we're really encouraging others to look into it and to build other compatible wallets, because it's all about the ecosystem. The more cross compatibility there will be, the more people will be okay to use it, because they feel much more confident if they know they can then import their backup elsewhere, or if they have the choice, if they are not stuck with a specific option. And we're really not afraid of that, because we know we're moving so fast that no matter what and no matter who is going to implement it, it's more going to be cooperation than competition in any way. So yeah.
There's so much cross compatibility right now with hardware wallets, right? So that's a good start. So
yeah,
but maybe
absolutely.
to the second question I asked, what it actually solves and what makes it different. That was the second part of my question. Sorry.
True. Yeah. So what does it solve? So right now, basically, somebody looking to get a secure Bitcoin wallet would be looking at either doing a very good single sig setup that they maybe never touch and have proper backups in different places, or if they want to use it from time to time, then they should probably already be looking at multi-signature, especially if they have significant amount of Bitcoin. Significant doesn't mean you have to be a millionaire. Significant just means enough that you are not willing to lose it, or it would make you freak out if you lose it. So that could be, 10K is life-changing for many people. It's like savings, right? So if you had, let's say, 10K USD or whatever in Bitcoin, you might already want to start looking into multi-signature. But the problem with multi-signature is always that it's not about just having 2 or 3 keys. It's about what do you do with them? Where do you store them? Where do you store the backups? They need to be in different places, etc. And people really got scared of that. So very few people actually did multi-sig for themselves. And that's where companies started to appear out there to offer products where they would have one of the 3 keys in a multi-sig, and they would basically offer you a 2 of 3 multi-signature. So this is all of the big names out there, right? You would have the Casa, the Unchained, Bitcode has it, like a lot of big names, right? But all of them basically rely on the same idea, which is a 2 of 3, and they have 1 key. So the idea is that if you lose one of yours, you can contact them, and then with your backup key plus their key, you can recover your coins. That's basically what they offer. And people felt, kind of okay with that. Now, it has 2 problems. One of them is that if you lose both of your keys, they cannot help you because they have only 1 and they need 2 to recover. And the other one, so you have, if you lose one, you have to rely on them. But then if you start, relying on them as well, why are you doing it? It's kind of introducing a security risk where they have a key, and then if somebody were to steal one of your key, they could potentially collude with them or find a way to impersonate you or things like that. So you have this kind of risk where it's not really protecting you as much as if you were in full control of your keys, of your wallet, basically, because they have some control over it. And at the same time, they don't have enough keys to help you recover in case of disaster recovery. And so I was like, yeah, something is missing there. Let's just, if one of the keys is a backup, the backup should not be active. It makes no sense. It's a backup. You'd never need it except in the worst case situation. So it's not a problem if it's, time locked, meaning if it's not valid right now, only going to be valid in the future. So if somebody steals it or whatever, I'm fine. And so this is what
let me add one point here that kind of separate the existing solution from what you were going to talk about. Right now, with the multi-sig or collaborative multi-sig technologies, there is no way to add some support or backup or some additional protection without giving up your sovereignty or a part of it to someone else. And if you do that, you still want to retain the majority of the control, if that's the simple way to put it. You want to keep majority of the control in your hand. But that also means you yourself become the single point of failure. If you forget, if you're in an accident, if you make a mistake, because you wanted to retain control, you didn't want to, rely on a third party to own your money. You are now yourself the single point of failure, and you still haven't solved the problem. In many of our user surveys and discussions, we've talked to hundreds and perhaps thousands of people, and what comes out of these discussions is they are terrified to have life-changing money in their own hands, because everyone makes mistakes, right? And then they also don't want to leave
and forget.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then what you can, become a ninja and learn a lot about security, like a lot of us do, and come up with a really smart system with good backups, distributed geographically, all that. But then the problem is no one else has the interest or knowledge to learn that from you if you're not available. And certainly your family members wouldn't care that much, unless you put them through all the rabbit hole that that you went through, right? So this has been an issue for the Bitcoin community, and it's been something that's pushing people away from using the best tool just because it's difficult. And a lot of, it's just having the tech available is not enough. When it's too difficult, no one will use it. So I think a lot of there's just too much money on single sigs right now, and what really excites me is the technology that you guys introduced solves this challenge. So it allows the user to upgrade to the much more advanced secure system without introducing the risks of themselves messing it up. So it takes away that risk of when the way most people put it is like, I'm too scared of holding my own money. Well, right now we are achieving the best of both worlds. You own the money. None of the ownership is shared with anyone else. No one can collude behind your back. And you can mess it up. You can lose everything. And there's still some fallback. Now, if you want to continue on that, tell us how your solution deals with this.
Yeah, exactly what you were saying. So it's either using a collaborative custody where you have some kind of partial recovery option if you still have some of yours, or going the whole way and you just use a custodian because you don't trust yourself and you trust that they will be more secure than you. But then the problem is the rug pull problem that keeps happening, every couple of years, and this is a reality. So for these people being like, either you use some kind of collaborative custody where you have at least some kind of recovery option, or you stay in full custody, wasn't great. And so what we introduced is basically using the Bitcoin time locks, but not to lock your coins as in, preventing yourself from spending. No, that's not what we use it for. We use it in advanced scripts in Bitcoin, so how you can spend your coins. And what we're doing with it is that we actually have the normal either single sig or multi-sig option that you would have already. But on top of that, so basically you have your normal spending that's valid all the time. Then we have a OR option in the code with a time lock in it that only activates basically if your coins haven't moved for a specific amount of time. And this OR condition, you can set whatever you want here. And so you could have, let's say, to emulate this collaborative custody, the current one that people have typically is 2 of 3, as I was saying, 2 from the user, 1 from the provider. While the equivalent using something like Liana would be a 2 of 2. So that's your 2 keys. But then after the time lock, it could be, for example, just the key of the custodian. And that would be cool because that lets you lose both of your keys and still be able to recover, for example. So that's pretty cool. So that's kind of like having the benefits of like the custodian while also having the self-custody for all the time you actually use the wallet. And now you can actually do more things. You can have many layers. You can have a recovery option where it's a different key that you have in a different place. And then if this one is also lost, you can add another layer where it's actually a custodian. So you can keep, going deeper and deeper to actually like look like an insurance company if you want, but it's not legally an insurance because it's still your coins. It's your money that you're getting back. You don't have to rely on them being solvent or anything like that. It's your coin. All they need is to sign, but they can only sign if you fucked up all of the other steps before. Now, another layer I want to talk about, which you quickly mentioned, Sina, is actually inheritance. And that's the one we didn't really talk about until now, because I was focusing really on loss, but now we can talk about inheritance. And there is a thing in Bitcoin, which is that you want self-custody. What does self-custody mean? Self-custody means you and only you can spend your coins. But inheritance means someone else can spend your coins when you are not here. So can you have inheritance in self-custody? Well, the answer was no before Liana. You could not. Anyone that tells you, we are a self-custody wallet, but we have inheritance, and they are not using the same tech as we are, they are basically lying to you. This is not possible. It's either you have self-custody and only you can access your coins, or you have inheritance support, and in that case, someone else can access your coins, because otherwise they can't. So when you look at services, as I was talking about, the collaborative custody services, when you activate, so typically you have to choose to activate an inheritance option. This is not by default, because when you do that, you lose the self-custody aspect. And it's not very clear that you lose it. I don't think they're very transparent on that. They really sell their services as like it's self-custody, and that's correct. When you have two keys and they have only one, this is correct. This is absolutely self-custody. But when you start having a fourth key for inheritance, it's not self-custody anymore. If it's a 2 out of 4, I'm sorry, if you only have two keys, you are not the only one in control. And so this is really an issue I had with all of these services. And I think it's kind of like misleading when they kind of have all of their communication around self-custody, but in the end of the day, your heir and maybe colluding with them could access your coins. Sure, there is different layers of protection. Maybe you need to call them, you need to prove things, but it's still there. You still have this risk that there is two keys in the wild that you don't control that could access your coins. And I don't like that. So instead, with what we're doing, using the time locks again, these recovery keys we were talking about, that could be actually the keys of your beneficiaries. So you could give one of these one to your wife, maybe a bunch of them to your kids. You can define different delays between each of them. And you have your secure wallet that only you can access, then potentially a recovery option for you, then potentially the inheritance keys, and then maybe the key agents, so the recovery option with you guys, for example, right? And so this is really important, and it's pretty difficult to understand how we do it, but this is enforced by the Bitcoin network. We are not a trusted party. 21st Capital is not a trusted party for the enforcement of the time locks either. So the time locks really is enforced by the Bitcoin consensus itself. The only way to break it would be to break Bitcoin itself. So there is no trusted party here. I'm mentioning that now because I don't know, I'm not seeing the chat yet, but maybe some people in the audience have seen that other companies are talking about time locks in this 2 of 3 or 2 of 4 space. But the only time lock they are using is basically trust-based. You have to trust them that they will not sign before a specific amount of time has passed. But this is not a time lock. This is themselves saying, we will not sign. It's very different from what we are doing, where it's enforced by the Bitcoin blockchain.
So here I have a graphic. It's an article that Zia wrote on our website. People can check it out. But this is another way to kind of mention what you said. Right now, the where we are with the existing technology is layer 1. So you get a multi-sig, and you can have multiple different schemes to share some of the keys with other ones for additional safety and backup. But what you guys have discovered is you can have inactive keys as secondary or tertiary or other layers, where they only get activated if something is wrong with the primary setup. For example, you're not able to sign for a set amount of time, meaning you've lost access, and other ones get activated. And this is, to Zia's point, this is extremely flexible because you can do whatever you want. You can have a variety of setups here. The second, third layer could themselves be multi-sigs, and they have could have different combination of people, could have like the same keys but just with lower thresholds, lower thresholds, to just work as a decaying multi-sig or things like that. And then you can have like a backup for yourself, a third layer for inheritance for your heirs that would gain access. If you lose your primary setup, you also can't figure out where the backup went, then the money will be accessible to the heirs automatically. And if your heir messes it up, you can have a recovery company that would, in that case, would be us, for example, hold the last resort, the, what do we call it, recovery of last resort. And this company can do nothing unless everyone else has lost their keys. So this is the amazing thing. So you, at no point you lose any of your ownership over money. Only when you have already lost your keys, the second or third or fourth layer gets activated. And this is just magic. I mean, I have no doubt that this will be commonly used. It can do amazing things. If you remember a while back, Michael Saylor was like, I can't hold MicroStrategy's money in my hand. I love self-custody, but it's just impossible. We can even have a board, all the board members, but we can't have like 5 board members owning the whole money. It's a huge security risk. So we used Coinbase and other ones as layers as checks and balances. And this is exactly what we can do now, like build checks and balances in the system in a way that like very smart, complex rules of spending gets activated as we go on.
Yep. Another thing around that is that in some countries you have like regulations that are forcing companies to use a custodian because of kind of the inability to prove that you lost your own keys. And so in some places you have these kind of regulations where companies want to do self-custody because there is always this risk of losing keys. They have to use a custodian. And with Liana, you actually have this recovery option. So now that if the company cannot lie saying, oh, we lost the keys, the money is gone. No, because if they actually don't move the money, you can then go to the recovery layer and get these funds back. So this is actually going to solve a lot of problems as well of like, oh, we lost access to the coins, which you hear in some rug pull cases.
Just to add something on top of everything you guys pointed out, which is amazing. I've had now a couple of people, and we've had multiple people reaching out to us asking for demos. And I think the biggest question mark above their head is that what happens if you guys are not around anymore? What happens if Wizardsardine doesn't exist or 21st Capital is gone, right? And that's the point that Kevin made, which is, I think, very, very, very important. This technology, if you compare this service, that what we provide compared to any other service like Unchained or Casa or any of these companies do, is that you do not actually need to trust us in any way. Even if we vanish tomorrow, you can still access your funds completely sovereign without even needing us. So what we actually do, we provide first the technology, which is open source, which is compatible with Bitcoin Core, right? And the service to actually do it securely and not make stupid mistakes, right? Because statistically speaking, most Bitcoin are not lost because of some $5 wrench attack. It's because people not knowing what they're doing, right? That's statistically proven. We know that people lose money most of the time because they don't know what they're doing. Technically speaking, they have no idea. So this is what we do. We use the most amazing technology that the team has worked for multiple years, and I count 3 years in Bitcoin a decade. That's a long, long time for Bitcoin, right? Because the asset class is only 16 years old. So really kudos to you guys. You've done an amazing job doing this. And I am just very proud, and I hope everybody else in my team, to to be one of the first companies to actually be part of this story, because we're going through this transition to a Bitcoin standard worldwide. And it's just amazing to be part of the future, because as Sina said, this solves so many things. And after this interview with you, actually, I had a lot of light bulb moments where I was like, oh, it actually also solves the 2 out of 2, right? Because before with multi-sig, you couldn't do 2 out of 2. If you did 2 out of 2, that would be so stupid. Because if you do 2 out of 2, if one of the keys is gone, you're toast. Like, it's over. There is no way to recover money. Like, I remember Antonopoulos was always stamping on this, like, never use 2 out of 2s. But with Liana, for the first time, we actually can use 2 out of 2, because we can have a third key that is inactive unless let me give an example. There is a company where they have 2 directors. They do a 2 out of 2, and they make a third key, right, with a custodian or with a trusted third party. And that trusted third party cannot co-sign with any of the CEOs, because it's an inactive key, right? So they enjoy the benefit of having a 2 out of 2, but if one of them loses the key, they can wait for a while and recover the money, right? So it solves a bunch of things, and is very, very, very exciting to have this available today.
Yeah, it's one of the kind of problems of Liana, is that it solves too many problems. So it solves the recovery problem, it solves the inheritance problem, it also solves, as you were saying, the security aspect of multi-sig. So now companies can do things very strict. Like you were saying, a 2 of 2 is more secure than a 2 of 3, because as a CEO myself, or even like you are CEO, let's say the 3 of you guys, you could have each of you 1 key, right? But in a 2 of 3 here could be any combination of the 2 of you. And so you cannot have one that has to sign and then any of the other could. But with Liana, you can have that. So the way we are doing it, for example, at Wizardsardine, because we have a stash of Bitcoin, as the CEO, I have to co-sign. But we have a 2 of 2 that rotates to a different 2 of 2 where I am in both. But the 2 keys that are there cannot co-sign with each other. So I have to sign with either one or the other, but they cannot sign together. And then, of course, we have different recovery options. But this is really, really powerful. And you can imagine that in family offices, for example, where you would have the person that creates the transactions, the person doing that could be the CFO or whatever. And then you have somebody that can just vet on the decision and say yes or no. And that could be just the co-signer. And if this person is not available, then you can rotate to a second person, for example, without ever bypassing the CFO or something like that. And this is extremely powerful. And you don't have to be a big company to use that. It's just a multi-sig, right? But with better conditions that you can set.
And what you said about insurance is also massive.
It's third-party swapping, right? So sorry to jump in here. So it's like third-party swapping. So you could have, like, let's say, even you can. So you could do this with other people in your company, or maybe like if you want to use actually the help of a recovery service, a collaborative custodian, to sign transactions with you, like a second factor, like authentication thing. So you could just like put third parties like this and swap them once they go malicious, like they won't sign with you, or if they, like, let's say they go bankrupt, or they withhold keys due to some regulations or anything. So I remember that this actually happened with Bitco, I think. So like there were some users like from specific parts of the world, so they were not able to sign it, like the collaborative custody they had with Bitco was not able to sign for them, and the other party that they had in the setup, that was not able to sign for them as well. So they were like, there's no way to sign the transactions. But with this, like, you could have like Bitco, the other custodian, and some other custodians, in case these ones like become subject to regulations or something, or I don't know, any kind of situations. That's the beauty of like Liana. it's at the same time the problem with it solves too many things, because like there's so much flexibility, there's so much that you could do with it.
But
Just
that's
one
why we're
quick
here,
thing.
right? We're here to simplify stuff, and we're here to explain and educate everyone. And anybody listening, just book a demo with us. If you don't follow, if you don't understand a word Kevin or me or Sina or Zia is saying, just book a demo, and we will do a personalized demo with your personalized questions. We'll explain everything, how it can solve your specific circumstance, right? Because everybody is in a different circumstance. Some people don't have kids. Some people do have kids, but they're not grown up kids. Some of them have siblings not living with them or in their city. So it depends on your circumstance, it depends on your situation, it depends on your age, it depends on so many things. So just book a demo. We have the demo link below, and we're looking forward to demo it to you. Back to you, Sina.
Yeah, so I mean, there is a lot of money that people spend on insurance, and over the years, I've been thinking, how can we make self-custody more palatable for people? And at some point, I even thought of just entertain the idea of having an insurance business over Bitcoin. But then, of course, like Kevin was saying, the challenge is if they lose the keys, who knows? Like where did they go? If it's stolen, that's identifiable. But if the keys remain in the same address, the money remains in the same address, and the client says, "I don't have the keys." What are you going to do? So they can claim it's lost, and the insurance company wouldn't know if it's really lost or not. But with a setup like this, you can technically offer insurance as well, right? So this is like maybe another entrepreneur will build a whole insurance business based on this, right? Because you can have a bulletproof backup in the system that even if the customer loses everything, you still that final recovery path will work, and you have fully solved the challenge of loss. You haven't solved the challenge of theft, which multi-sig helps a ton with that one. But here, risk of loss goes away. And then I can't just put a number on how valuable it is to know your money cannot be lost. And many institutions and many people spend a lot of money in traditional finance just for that insurance.
Yes. Zia, you want to take some questions?
Yeah, actually. So we're close to 1 hour. Let's maybe wrap up. So the one I had a question. I had somebody actually, a friend actually asked me a question about like how much like the Taproot and Tap Miniscript or Mini Tap script. I don't know which name we're gonna go with in the future, because like there's the Peter name and the Liana guy's name. So it's like two names for this thing. So how much like in fees would this actually make it like much more efficient or something? I don't know.
Yep,
Would save us?
Yeah. So this is a big deal. If you have the hardware wallets that are compatible with Tap Miniscript, which is what I call it, then you should go for the Taproot option in Liana or in the Smart Vault. The reason for that is that basically, even with Miniscript, if you don't have Taproot, when you spend in Bitcoin, you have to reveal the script you're using, the whole script. And so if you have many recovery paths, many recovery options, you basically have to like publish to the Bitcoin blockchain all of these XPubs, all of these public keys, sorry, not XPubs, all of these public keys that are associated to this coin. And so that could be a pretty big script, even if you use a single SIG to spend. If you had like 3, 4, 5 recovery options, you're basically paying the price you would for a multi-sig of 5 keys. So that's starting to be expensive. But with Taproot, you actually only reveal the condition you're using. So if it's a single SIG, you're going to pay for just a single SIG, and nobody looking at the blockchain will know you're using a smart vault. Nobody will know about your time locks. Nobody will know about who is a recovery option or how many you have. And that's super useful. So yeah, if you can use Taproot, use it. Great for the privacy of not showing that you're using Liana or the smart vault, and great for fee savings because you might just be paying a normal single sig, or at least just the normal price of a multi-sig without the cost of the recovery options.
So and if like we could see that. Sorry. So one thing to add to what Kevin said. So if we consider that there are users, maybe like organizations, companies, they use like big multi-sig schemes, like they have like lots of people participating in the setup. Those ones will benefit the most. Am I correct?
Yeah. Anyone that has multiple recovery option definitely would benefit, but also the people who have multi-sig in the recovery options will be doing huge benefits. So if, for example, even as an individual, if for the recovery option or inheritance option, you do a multi-sig between your kids, having to pay for that price every time you do a normal transaction is kind of inefficient. So using Taproot for that use case is very good.
Okay, so
Okay.
I'll let Zia decide if they wants to add more questions, but I'll quickly say perhaps the last one should be about the collaboration between 21st and Liana. We get a lot of questions. Okay, what's going on here? How are you different? So maybe Kevin can tell us a little bit more how he envisions what this system working and what's our role, what's their role, and so on.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we are a security company. Wizardsardine is a Bitcoin security company. Our focus is currently on Liana. Like this is where we put all of our efforts, basically. We still do some security work on the side, and you will see some news about that because we do security audits of other Bitcoin things in Bitcoin protocol layer. But yeah, we are a technology company, a security company. We like to build stuff. And I think Liana right now is at this stage where it's there. We are going to improve it a lot, but it's there and it's really a cool thing. There is traction. The market is really receptive about it, and so this is a big validation for us. So that's cool. Now, bringing that to market is definitely not my forte. I'm not, I'm really not the kind of person who can be distracted all day by doing onboardings and support and things like that. I love doing it. I'm doing it, but I can't do that all day. This is not the best use of my time, and same for my team. So we're still a relatively small team, not tiny, but relatively small. And we just want to keep focusing on the technical aspect and technological aspect. So my role now is basically about building these partnerships, like with you guys, but also with other kind of partners, like Daxia was explaining. Like you could have rotation of third parties, and I think this is extremely important. So what if 21st Capital were to disappear one day? You can still use your wallet, but then the recovery option, of course, they would have to tell you, oh yeah, we are going to shut down or whatever, so you should rotate to a different provider. This is annoying. So why not allowing people to just, when they sign up, they do the onboarding with you guys, but they are signed up with like 3 different providers at the same time, including you, and you would need maybe 2 of them to recover. And that could be you, that could be BitGo, that could be Unchained, big names, very trusted things, and you could have like these rotations in case, something happened to one of them. And I think this is extremely powerful. Again, very new, in this ecosystem to not have competition anymore, but this kind of thing where you could just sign up with everyone, just pay everyone, and everyone has a key, and then they need to have a multi-sig between them to recover. I think this is insanely good. So part of that is also my role for the next short time. Yeah.
Just to add something on top of what you just said, Kevin, unlike closed networks, since Bitcoin is an open network, everybody actually benefits the more people operate on it, right? So the more we build, the more we collaborate, the more people actually join as service providers or users, the more powerful the entire network becomes, and the more everybody actually benefits, right? So just to emphasize that what Kevin said is absolutely true. we need, actually, we want, just like, Elon Musk is always saying, we need more people building electric cars because everybody's going to benefit, right? Because the entire ecosystem is going to benefit. So we want more people join the Bitcoin network, and we want more providers to join us, to partner with us, to provide onboarding services, because we benefit at the same time, right? So we want more users, we want more entrepreneurs, and we want people that we would love to work with. So that's why we are collaborating. That's why we're trying to get people in, not being scared of doing self custody. Self custody is not scary. You shouldn't keep your coins on an exchange, because now it's finally possible to never lose access to your Bitcoin, even if you hold your own keys. That's the message, in my opinion, what we are trying to convey. Zia, back to questions. Do we have more?
Yeah, so there's a question again from like some of the questions are kind of tech savvy. So I see that like bright minds interested in what we're doing here. So there's like two things here. One which like we could take maybe later is like how to start developing on this, or maybe like contribute to it, or what should I read? What should I do? What should I like? I'm interested in this. I'm psyched. Let's see what you can do. This is one, and the other is like if there are any considerations with regard to descriptors, maybe like with Taproot, like we need to update them or anything.
Cool. Yeah, let's start with the descriptor one. The descriptor are a thing in Bitcoin that you need to safe keep. If you're using, well, it should be for any kind of wallet, but for single sig, there is kind of the standard derivation path, so people don't keep a descriptor. But if you were using a multi-sig, a normal multi-sig, not even thinking about Liana or the smart vault, you should already keep your descriptor. If you don't have it, you might lose your coins. This is the same thing with us. So with Smartvault, with Liana, you need to safe keep this file, which is a descriptor. It's kind of the equivalent of an XPub from the single sig perspective, meaning that if somebody finds it, or if you give it to someone, they can see everything about your wallet history. So it is private, but it's not secret as a private key, because nobody can spend your coins with this. So the descriptor is a file you need to keep. You need to make sure your family will have it if they need to recover the wallet, for example. So this is very important. This is actually one of the services that Wizardsardine offers for people who want to. We can keep a backup of this descriptor. Yeah. Then for the other question, which was about learning and contributing, contributing, look at the Wizardsardine GitHub. Liana is out there. It's completely open source, and we actually have issues that are tagged as a good first issue. That's where, if you've never looked at the code of Liana before, and you are a developer, you can already start looking into these, and they are basically self-contained. So it's just like you have a small problem. We know it's easy for people to do, so we're not solving it ourselves. It's a way for people to start contributing and start learning how we work together and things like that. So completely open source. We encourage this kind of thing. For just learning about Miniscript and things like that, there is quite a lot of resources now. So yeah, just Googling Miniscript is a good place. The Bitcoin Optech newsletter is also a very good place to learn about all the technical things about Bitcoin. So I would recommend that. But yeah, in terms of playing around with Miniscript, Liana is actually pretty great. If you want to code something using Miniscript, like a new wallet or something, there is a library called BDK that we're not really using ourselves because we were faster. But now BDK is launching in V1 very soon. And so you can already use BDK to start building a wallet. So if you want to play around, build a kind of a hackathon project in the weekend, trying to build your own Miniscript test wallet, use BDK. It's great.
And there's maybe the Rust library and the blog posts. So I'm actually writing lots of blog posts about that. So you could check 21st Capital's blog. I was not thinking about that. Thank you, Rusbe, for reminding me. And also
I was about
the
to
blog
say, you
posts,
should say that.
Yeah, the blog post, but that guy, I forgot his name. So the developer from Bitbox. So they have like 3 blog posts. They're very cool. Yeah, Benma, yeah. So like very good blog posts with regard to Miniscripts. There's a post on Ledger from Salvatore. He's the guy I think behind like actually, I don't know, like implementing Miniscript into Ledger, and which is like very cool. Like this is the first time I actually like Ledger after all these years. And yeah, that's it. So you could like play around with some playgrounds, and like there's Miniscript.fun. There's I think there's few other websites that make it like you could play around with Miniscripts and see what you could build with. And yeah, maybe that's it.
So here's our
Yes,
blog.
this is our
with,
blog.
some of the articles Zia has been writing. You can find the details, but also download formatted reports. And just keep in touch if you have questions about this, and we'll be happy to help.
Yeah, cool. So
Awesome.
thank you, Kevin. Thank you guys for being here and answering all these questions from people who are very interested in cool
Thanks
stuff
for
you're
having me.
building. So
I
yeah,
found this round really, really amazing. Kevin, thanks for coming on. Thank you,
Yeah, thanks
Zia, for
again.
hosting.
It was great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye.
a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.
see you soon. Later.